رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي واجعل لي وزيرا من أهلي. Another very beautiful linguistic miracle of the Qur'an. This is chapter number 32 verse 27, which says, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, have they not seen that we drive water in clouds to barren land and bring forth thereby crops from which their livestock eat and they themselves eat? Then do they not see? Now notice Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the livestock, the animals such as the cows and the sheep, etc. It mentions the livestock first, and then it mentions us human beings next. However, in Surah Abasa chapter 80, way ahead in the Qur'an, and in verse number let me show you the context, verse number 17 onwards, or let me put it from verse number 24 onwards. Allah says, then let mankind look at his food, how we poured down water in torrents, then we broke open the earth, splitting it, causing it to grow within it grain and grapes and herbage and olives and palm trees and gardens and fruits, and then as an enjoyment provision for you and for your grazing livestock. Now here Allah mentions the humans first, for you, and then mentions the grazing livestock, the animals, the cattle. So in chapter 32 it mentioned the livestock before animals, before us, and in chapter 80 it mentioned us before the livestock. Although it doesn't matter in language if I say as an enjoyment for your cattle and for you, or in Surah As-Sajdah, if I flip it, if I say from which you and your livestock eat, in language is no problem. But now let me show you the wisdom and the beauty and this miraculous placement of this word order, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions livestock in chapter 32 before animals. What is it talking about? It's talking about from which their livestock eat and they themselves eat, right? However, Surah Abasa, it says it's an enjoyment, a provision for you and your grazing livestock. Now notice eating and provision. Eating is what? It's eating. It's an act that animals do, and that's the only thing the livestock could possibly do with the crops. What else can they do with that? So when it's mentioning eating, it mentions the livestock first before us. But Surah Abasa is taken as an enjoyment, a provision, because human beings, what do they use the plants for? Many things. For decoration, for gardens, for business, for trading, for using them in different materials in the industry. So it's, when it mentions provision, mentions us before the livestock, because it's much more of a provision for us. For livestock, the only purpose is eating. So when it mentions the only purpose of eating, from which the livestock eat and they themselves eat, it mentions livestock. Subhanallah, that's the first thing. The second thing is, this is a mention of nature and the signs in the nature, where it mentions the livestock. Have they not seen you drive water to clouds, to barren land, bring crops? It's the mention of nature, so mentioning the livestock was much more appropriate. However, in Surah Abasa, it was mentioning man himself, let's say the thankless nature of man, his ingratitude. He says, destroyed, cursed is man, how disbelieving is he. From what thing substance did he create him? Then Allah mentions the blessings Allah has given us, names them by name. It doesn't just say crops. He says we caused within it to grow within it grain, grapes, herbage, olives, palm trees. He wants to create thankfulness in us, gratitude in us, and that's why he says for you and your grazing livestock. It's for you, oh man. Subhanallah. And then there's a third difference. Here Allah is mentioning a cycle. Now in the cycle, animals come before us in the eating cycle. Why? Because first there is water. It comes down as rain, goes into the land, into the barren land, from which we bring forth the crops. Who are the first to eat those small shrubs and those grass? You first see the animals come to it. They will eat it, and then when it grows into olives, palm trees, when it gives the fruit, that's when human beings start using it. Otherwise, the first recipients of this is the livestock itself. Subhanallah. So you see, it's so beautiful from so many points of view. It was much more appropriate to mention livestock before us in chapter 32, and it was much more appropriate to mention us before livestock in chapter 80. Subhanallah, book never changed for the 14 centuries. Yet every word from so many points of view, still perfectly chosen word order. Subhanallah, may God give us conviction. This is what gives us conviction in the heart, that this can only be written by God. May God give us this conviction. Subhanallah wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.